I'm sorry, Wilson, Thomas, Alex are partners. Wilson contributed 150,000 in partnership, but Thomas contributed 50,000. So that's a 75-25 spread. Wilson does 40% of the work and Thomas does 60%, so that's a 40-60 split. They do not have a partnership agreement that addresses the sharing of profits and losses. By the end of the year, the partnership has earned a profit of $200,000. What is Wilson's version or share of the profits? And the answer to that question, let me think. 80,000 would be 40%.
Yeah.
100,000 would be 50%. I mean, 15,000 would be, I don't know where that number came from. So I can strike that. And 150,000 would be 75%. Yeah. So therefore, I could do it on the percentage of contribution, percentage, and you say no. I could do it on the percentage of capital, and you say no. I should do it according to the partnership agreement, but the partnership agreement doesn't tell me how to do it, therefore I do it 50-50, therefore the answer is B. Linda, you agree?
Yes.
Very good. Question number 2. The partners of a general partnership decided to dissolve the partnership and agreed that none of the partners would continue to use the partnership name. Which of the following events would occur on dissolution of the partnership? Matt, would each, and yes, let's turn this into a true false, would each of the partners' liabilities be discharged? So if you're a partner that was in a partnership that ended last week, Matt, are you still liable?
No.
You're not? Let me ask you a question. AJ, if you entered into a contract with a partnership and you have not been paid yet, do you still expect to be paid? So I think the answer to that question is no, that it's not discharged.
Right.
And Matt, this is somewhat, and notice it's somewhat tricky because notice that this is worded in a, could be interpreted in a negative manner. Now, AJ, tell me the difference, and this goes back to agency law, tell me the difference in apparent and actual authority. Apparent authority is what a third party thinks you have. Actual authority is what you actually have. So if the partnership has been dissolved, then you have no actual authority. But do you still have apparent authority? So the answer is no and yes. Therefore, the answer to the question is C. Matt, you agree?
I do.
So Biju, this is a problem similar to what we did in class. In fact, I stole the idea from this and made some modification. So let me do it a long way, and then we'll do it a short way, and then we'll see which way is better. So the long way is, to throw a card at me. So I have cash, I have other assets, and I'm going to draw a vertical line to these are assets, these are equities, accounts payable, and I have two partners, and I have Smith, and I have James. And the left-hand side should equal the right-hand side because debits equal credits. Cash is 40. Other assets, 12 plus 38 is 50. Accounts payable 24. Smith has a balance of 30 currently, and James has a balance of 36. You agree so far? So what happened first? We collected the accounts receivable and we got paid $10,000. But the accounts receivable were $12,000, which means I need to write off how much? So I need to credit the accounts receivable account for how much? The amount I got paid or the total amount? Tellini says the total amount. And then Tellini, the problem with this is that creates a loss, which makes sense to me because I was due, I have a face amount of 12 and I got paid 10, so I've got a bad debt of 2. And it says the partnership profits are split 60-40. So therefore, profits and losses are split 60-40. Therefore, Bijou, how much of the $2,000 loss should go to Smith? I think Smith has 60%. Is that right? And James has 40%. So 60% of 2,000 is, and some zeros, 1,200. And therefore, James's share would be 800. Talini, you agree? Mm-hmm. Now, the next thing we did is we sold the plant and equipment for 32,000. So that would be plus 32 to cash. And then Talini, the plant and equipment has a book value of 38,000. And I need to, now that I no longer have it, I need to get rid of it all. So minus 38 here. Minus 38. Which means that, Talini, this is a negative 6. So I need a negative 6 on the other side. Or Sydney, to state another way, I have and Talini, if you wanted to, you could do this with journal entries. But I think I can visualize it easier without that. So therefore, Megan, I've lost 6,000 because I sold something for 32 that I've got a book value of 38 in. And the profits and losses are split 60-40. And so 60% of 6,000 is 3,600. And then the remaining 40% goes to James. That's 2,400. And then Talini, I need to do something with those accounts payable. AJ, do the creditors expect to be paid? Mm-hmm. So therefore, that means that I need to reduce accounts payable by 24,000 as I pay them off. But AJ, that also reduces cash by 24,000. Now, let me do a total. So, Bijou, when I add up the total cash, I wind up with total cash of 58,000. Other assets are gone. Liabilities are gone. And then somebody with a calculator tell me what Smith's balance is. Bijou? 25,2. And then James's balance is, Bijou is 32,8. Now, Bijou, let me see what the question is. The question is, how much cash will be distributed to Smith? And the answer is 25,2. Now, Sydney, there's an easier way to do this. And that is simply to concentrate on what happened in this column. Do you agree? That is, I could simply say, okay, Smith has a beginning balance of 30. Oh, before I do that, let me make sure that this adds up. Talini, 25,2 plus 32,8 does equal 58,000. Is that right? So therefore, Sydney, I could simply concentrate on Smith's column. And generally, Sydney, I would give that advice because I would concentrate only on that part that I need to answer the question. And I don't really need to know what's happening to the other accounts. So, and I know that I have a loss in the accounts receivable, and I know that Smith will pick up 60% of that. I also know that I'm going to have a loss on the sale of the plant and equipment, and Smith will get 60% of that. So really, I only need these three numbers. However, I think, Sydney, in this case, I'm going to deviate from the normal ways and suggest that doing it in this format is better. Because one, I don't think it's going to take that much longer. And two, the big advantage is, do I have a check? That is, and the check, David, is this plus this. The two capital accounts should equal the cash left. Kelly, you agree? Sydney, you agree? Bijou, you agree? Maybe you agree. Very good. Now, Talini, that's question number 3. Talini, which is the next question? 4. Okay, very good. Sometimes I skip. And then Talini, I have very polite students who say, I think you skipped one. Instead of saying, you dumbass, you skipped one. You say, I think you skipped one. Okay, question number 4. Unless otherwise provided in the partnership agreement, which of the following statements is correct when a partner dies? Kelsey and Michael, is it true that the deceased partner's executor would automatically become a partner? No. So that's a no. Is it true, Kelsey, that the deceased partner would be free from any partnership liability?
No.
No, because AJ still wants to be paid. So that's a no. Michael, the partner would be disassociated from the partnership automatically. Kelsey?
Yes.
Yes. Michael also says yes. So now that I've turned it into a no, no, yes, the answer, Kelsey, is
D.
D. Michael, you agree? Now, Talini, what's the next question?
5.
What term is used to describe a partnership without a specific duration? Taylor, let me think about this. Taylor, there's nothing in human life that is perpetual. A partnership by estoppel, well, Greg, that's not the case because a partnership by estoppel is one that is forced upon us. So it seems like I can eliminate A and B. And then, Taylor, I'm stuck with C and D, indefinite. But I think, Greg, indefinite is another way of saying perpetual. And I'm looking for, the other way to look at this, Taylor, is that even if I thought C and D were a possible answer, the legal term is a partnership at will. So the answer is
D.
D. So, Talini, what's the next question?
9.
So let me make up one. Talini, let us suppose, oh yeah, we didn't say that. Talini, let us suppose that you invest in a business. In fact, you take all your life savings and you invest in corporation XYZ. So here's Talini, and she invests in XYZ. XYZ makes some bad business decisions, and XYZ fails. Therefore, Talini, you have lost your life savings. And you are very polite, but you want somebody to pay. Which means that Megan will bring in the lawyers and we'll sue somebody. Now, Sydney is a member of the board of directors. And Megan, the job of the board of directors is to make management decisions. Or more precisely, to hire managers that will make management decisions, to set broad corporate policy. Now, Megan, she can't sue the corporation. Why? It's no more. It's dead. There are no assets there. Therefore, and Sydney has very, very deep pockets. Therefore, Alex, Talini is going to sue Sydney for failure to do her job as a member of the board of directors. Now, Sydney, the other thing I want to tell you, Sydney, is that you're incorporated in the state of Delaware. Now, here's an interesting tidbit. You may know, Sydney, that the overwhelming majority of large firms are incorporated in Delaware. How many of you knew that? How many of you knew that? I just told you that. Now, why, Michael?
So it's early this semester?
I'm sorry.
It's a little early this semester.
So why?
Oh, why?
Yeah, why?
Do you remember?
Ah, why, Linda? So did I say that earlier in the semester? So what were you, Linda? So why? Here's the reason why. In Delaware, members of the board of directors are given more protection than any other state. So it's very, very difficult to sue a member of the board of directors in the state of Delaware. And so, Taylor, you're on the board of directors and you're trying to decide, or you're going to start a business and you're going to be a member on the board and you're having a general conversation and you say, where should we incorporate? And then Michael says, incorporate in Delaware because it would be easy to sue you. But suppose, Megan, that this corporation is not based in Delaware, suppose it's based in Missouri. So now, Cindy, you don't have quite the protection that you do in Delaware. But Cindy, do you think that there would be lots of lawsuits against members of the board of directors every time a corporation fails? And do you think, Kelsey, it's not uncommon for corporations to fail? And so, there's something called the business judgment rule. The business judgment rule. Which basically said, Cindy, as long as you use reasonable care, then you're protected from a lawsuit. So, Talini, to be able to win your lawsuit, you need to show that she did, not that they made a bad decision. Because clearly, Kelsey, with the benefit of hindsight, clearly this is a bad decision. You agree?
Yeah.
But Megan, that's with the benefit of hindsight. You know, if I had a crystal ball, I would never make a mistake. So as long as what the business judgment rule says, Cindy, is as long as you exercise reasonable judgment, then you're protected from a lawsuit. And I think, Kelsey, if that was not the case, nobody would ever serve on a board of directors because the legal liability would be too extreme. AJ, you agree? Now, AJ, what do you think how do we first get through this protection? Give me a way, give me something that Cindy could do. And it's got to be more, tell me something Cindy could do to be subject to liability. So we're trying to help Talini because, did I mention you lost your life savings? And so did you get that on tape? She said in the most timid voice I can imagine, she says, I'm very angry. Which is, you know, everything's relative. What do you think she could do? Give me an example of what she could do that would create liability for. What do you think, AJ and then Alex, what do you think? Do we have another A name? No other A names. Oh, Ann. So, we're going to hear the A students.
If she used like those businesses funds for like her personal.
Okay, so if she commingled assets, use corporate funds. I think we talked about a case earlier, AJ, where the corporation spent $500,000 to make a down payment on a house by the CEO, and that would be an example. That's a good one. Alex, give me another one.
Like fraudulent activity,
Like what?
like cooking books, hiding transactions.
So what if she enticed us to also do business with ABC, and she's the majority shareholder of ABC, and ABC profited from the demise of XYZ? You could get to fraud there, but Kelsey, and that's a good one, But Kelsey, do you think we'd have to necessarily show fraud? Is it enough to say that she is a shareholder of ABC and she's on the board of XYZ, and simply that they do business together? Well, let me ask that question. Kelsey, let's suppose, it's Sydney, she's the bad person here. Sydney, if you are a member of the board of directors in XYZ and a shareholder in ABC, does that mean that XYZ cannot do business with ABC? And I think, Kelsey, if that was the rule, that would be too extreme, because that would limit our freedom. So AJ, what do you think the requirement on Sydney would be if XYZ is going to deal with the corporation that she owns? No. Talini's question was, does it matter if she's a majority shareholder or not? And the answer is no, because even if she's a 10% shareholder, she still benefits when ABC does well. So what do you think, Michael, that she would have to do? And one of the things that Taylor accountants are big on is big on disclosure. So therefore, Kelsey, as long as she disclosed that she was a shareholder in ABC, we could do business with her. So she has a duty, so Sydney, you have a fiduciary duty to the corporation, duty of loyalty and so forth, and so forth, and so forth. So as long as you disclosed that you were a shareholder in ABC, we'd be okay. So I think, Kelsey, if you consider the kinds of people who own who are members of the board of directors, there'd be a lot of disclosure going on. Okay, so Anne, I've basically got three. I've got, she used corporate assets for personal benefit. She committed fraud. She failed to disclose that she has an interest in the other firm. And give me another one. What if Sydney never attended a board of directors meeting, and we can prove that she never, and this would be difficult to prove, but we can prove to Leni that although she was paid a substantial amount of money, she never did anything. She never went to a board of directors meeting. She never read her emails. In fact, David, she has a personal email account that she just deletes every once in a while. Reference to Hillary Clinton, if you miss it. So if she did absolutely nothing as a member of the board, so in other words, you were negligent. But Talini, that's a pretty high standard to meet. And I would think, Talini, that somebody who is connected enough to be a member of the board of directors would know this. So I think, Kelsey, the sad news is you are. Because, Michael, there are lots of protections in for members of the board, and I think, Taylor, that's appropriate, otherwise we'd have nobody willing to serve. But the takeaway from this are two things. Linda, thing number one is the business judgment rule, which basically says what?
That so long as reasonable judgment is exercised, the board will be protected from being sued.
So therefore, making a bad decision is not enough. And then, if you're a member of the board, Linda, and the corporation which you're a member of the board does business with another corporation that you have an interest in, that is okay as long as you disclose. Very good. So, let's go. So, Linda, am I on the right place?
Yeah.
Very good. Corporation is a creation of statute and artificial person. Corporations can have one or more shareholders. comprised of natural persons or other businesses. Matt, when I use the term natural person, what is a natural person?
It's like a like a real human being, like.
Okay,
a legal-
human being.
Yeah.
Okay, because, and normally, a good answer, normally, Alex, when you think of a person, you don't, if you had never taken a law class or an accounting class, you would think that a corporation is not a person because you attribute personal characteristics to personhood. But in fact, it's a very important concept, Matt, that a corporation is a legal person, not a natural person, but a legal person. Therefore, given that it's a person, enjoys the same rights and privileges as a human. Therefore, they have access to the court system, constitutional guarantees, and notice the Constitution doesn't talk about humans, it talks about persons. Therefore, you have the right of free speech, due process, and so forth. So you have all the constitutional protections of a human. Corporate personnel. Responsibility for the management of the company rests with the board of directors, who are elected by the shareholders. So AJ, in theory, the power belongs with the shareholders. And so, if you own, AJ, 100 shares of General Electric, are you an important person? No, but in theory, you elect the board of directors. And the board of directors makes policy decisions and hires officers who are actually going to run the business. Therefore, we can say, Cindy, that the board of directors sets broad policy, which you did in the case of XYZ, but Talini, I don't think she did a good job. And you were very angry about that? You recovered quickly. You have limited liability to shareholders. Generally, shareholders not personally liable for corporate acts. Therefore, Kelsey, as a shareholder, you can only lose what you have invested in the company. But in certain situations, the corporate veil of limited liability can be pierced, holding the shareholders personally liable. Notice that this is an extreme case, and factors that a court considers are a third party was tricked into dealing with the corporation rather than the individual. Corporation is set up never to make a profit or to remain solvent or is undercapitalized. AJ, let's talk about what it means to be undercapitalized. And let's make you a creditor. To be undercapitalized, Sydney, means what? Not enough money, not enough capital. So therefore, Sydney, the corporation puts, the shareholders put in $100,000, but they probably need capital of $1 million. Now, Sydney, most corporations fail because the undercapitalization is the number one reason that most corporations fail. And Taylor, most businesses do fail. It's only a very few that are successful in the long term. Therefore, AJ, you are a creditor of the corporation, and the corporation is undercapitalized. Therefore, the corporation goes under, and therefore they don't pay you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you feel about that?
I'm upset.
Michael, I think there's something about this front row. There's just no passion on this front row. You know, Talini has lost her life savings and she's very angry. And then AJ is out $50,000 and you are upset.
You didn't say $50,000 beforehand.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so now what do you, so let's make it more interesting. Corporation owes you $500,000.
I know.
Now, how do you feel?
I'm living.
Living. And you want to sue somebody, but the corporation's already gone under. You could pierce the corporate veil, which means that David, she can go after the shareholders, and her justification, David, for going after the shareholders is that they were undercapitalized. Therefore, Kelsey, in essence, they were negligent when they formed the corporation. But notice, Kelsey, as with all things, the burden of proof is with AJ to prove that they were undercapitalized. But that's an example where Megan, where the shareholder could lose her limited liability. And I think, Taylor, that's probably appropriate because the reason that they failed was that they were undercapitalized. Corporation, other factors that the court may consider. Corporation is formed to evade existing legal obligation. Statutory formalities are not followed, and we'll do more examples of that later. And Cindy, you know how often this issue comes up. Commingling of personal and corporate interest. We saw that with agency. We'll see that again, Cindy, when we talk about accountant's legal liability, and now we see it here. And I think that was the first thing that got you in trouble as a director. This is more of a problem for closely held corporations than it is for large corporations because of the nature of the beast. Separate status must be preserved. Commingling of funds, that again. No directors meetings, so therefore Kelsey will not operate. Kelsey, if you and Cindy formed a corporation, is this the two of you? Sometimes you might skip over the legal niceties, but Cindy, that could be a mistake. Shareholder use of corporate property. The alter ego theory. Corporation Kelsey is the alter ego of the majority shareholder, and personal and corporate interests are commingled. So I can't tell. So Kelsey starts a corporation, and we call it, what are we going to call it? Kelsey Inc. And the problem, Michael, is I can't tell where Kelsey the human being stopped and Kelsey Inc. began. And therefore, AJ, the corporation owes you. And notice, I almost made a mistake. I almost said she owed you. But the corporation is not she, it's an it. But Michael, since I can't tell where she ends and it begins, maybe, Cindy, we could pierce the corporate veil and she would actually have to pay AJ. How does that make you feel? Excited. But notice that, do you think, Brandon, that courts are eager or reluctant to do this? To pierce the corporate veil. And again, Megan, to pierce the corporate veil means to strip away the legal, the limited liability of a shareholder. So you think that courts are eager or reluctant to do this?
Reluctant.
Reluctant to do this. So you have to have an extreme case to do that. But Kelsey, it's something to be aware of. Criminal acts, corporation can be liable for criminal acts but cannot be imprisoned. And that makes sense, because how do you put Kelsey Inc. in jail? Only fine. However, under the responsible officer doctrine, corporate officers may, can, and have gone to prison. Classification of corporations. A domestic corporation does business within its state of incorporation. A foreign corporation, an example of that is you're incorporated in Arkansas, but you do business in Missouri. So therefore, Brandon, from a Missouri standpoint, Walmart is a foreign Walmart, which is incorporated in Arkansas, is a foreign corporation. An alien corporation is formed in another country, for example, a German company. One of the things that always annoys me about American terminology, Tellini, is we call you an alien. And it's like, why not call you a visitor? I mean, aliens, Angela, come from Mars, don't they? So I mean, it's like, but that's the terminology we use. So let me make sure I understand this. Kelsey, a domestic corporation is you operate in your state of incorporation. You're a foreign corporation if you operate outside that place of state of incorporation, and you're an alien corporation if you are from a different country. It would be so much better to me if we just called it a guest corporation. I mean, it's really unfriendly, isn't it? Angela, just an editorial comment, you could just delete that. Or maybe keep it. Public and private corporations. Public corporation is one that's perfectly held. Private corporation is one that's held by a few people. Could be a corporation for nonprofit purposes or closely held corporation. Shares held by a few shareholders. More informal management similar to a partnership. Process of incorporation generally involves two steps. The preliminary and promotional activities. And Kelsey, if you think about you want to start a business, you'd have to you'd have to see if there's a market for what you're trying to sell. You'd have to see where the market is. You'd have to decide what you want to, what sort of service or good you want to sell. And once you do all that, Linda, then you determine we're going to do it, then the legal process of incorporation. Promotional activities. Before the corporation is formed, promoters are the persons who take the preliminary steps of organizing the venture and attracting investors via subscription agreements. But notice that the promoter is personally liable for pre-incorporation contracts on behalf of the corporation. So Brandon, you're the promoter, and you're doing all the stuff to get the corporation off the ground, and you engage in a contract with AJ, and AJ I think has shown herself to be a good person to deal with because she's very even-tempered.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you signed a contract with her, maybe to lease a building. And you signed the contract in October, but the corporation is not legally formed until November. Can she hold you liable? Corporation's not liable, why not?
Because I'm not.
Because they don't exist yet. And notice I'm using the wrong pronoun. It does not exist yet. Okay. Unless AJ says, okay, I'll hold the corporation liable. And I think, based on what we've seen so far, you'd do that.
I don't know, maybe.
Angela, let the record reflect that she's having second thoughts. And I think she's having second thoughts because she's been burned twice in this class today. Okay. And then there's the incorporation procedure from promotion to name search to subscribers, people who subscribe for stock, to the file the articles of incorporation, get the state charter, and then you have your first organizational meeting and you elect a board of directors. More comments about a closely held corporation. Corporation is held by a relatively small number of shareholders. These types of corporations usually have the following provisions in their articles of incorporation. The right of first refusal requires that shareholders who wish to sell the stock must offer the stock to existing shareholders before they sell to outsiders. Taylor, why is this called the right of first refusal?
Because the shareholders are the first ones to say if they want it or not.
So therefore you have to offer it to, so you form a corporation with Angela, and before you sell the stock, and it seems like, Taylor, you got the right to sell your stock to anybody you want to. But, according to the Articles of Incorporation, you have to offer the stock to Angela first. So only when she turns you down can you sell to an outsider. So she's got the right of first refusal. Why, Brandon? Why would we want that in the Articles of Incorporation?
Just because there's such a small number of shareholders.
Yeah, and Angela wants to know who she's doing business with. It's not like the AJ has stock in 100 shares in General Electric. Other General Electric, David also has 100 shares. You don't care who she sells the stock to. But Angela, you do care who Taylor sells the stock to because you're going to be more impacted by it. Corporate obligation to buy out the stock of deceased corporate shareholders. And again, David, why do we do this? So Keith dies, and the corporation has an obligation to buy out his 6 shares. And you own 50%, and Keith owns 50%. Why do you want this in the corporate charter? Because you want to keep control, and you know his daughters and don't want to deal with it. But David, when we talked about this in conjunction with the partnership, David, to buy out half of his stock would require a major cash, which normally you don't have on hand. So to be able to do this, what would the corporation probably do? Buy key personal life insurance, that when Keith died, the corporation would collect the life insurance and then pay off his beneficiaries. And that way, you keep control of the corporation. And again, David, shareholders in General Electric would not be so concerned with this. What if the articles of corporations are are met except for a technicality. In that case, we say that AJ, that it would be a de jure corporation, and generally will be recognized by both the state and the third party. Give me an example of a technical violation. So I do these articles of incorporation, and I give the state, and last time, when we first introduced corporations, AJ, last time I gave you a list of all the things that have to be included. The name, the purpose, the number of shares that are authorized, a person to serve as, to receive as an agent of the corporation so that we know who to serve the process to. So tell me an example of a technical mistake that is not, it's like, okay, you made a mistake, but it's not a big deal. How about an address? How about if the correct address is 2502 First Street? That's the correct address. But the articles of incorporation say 2520 First Street. Now, AJ, is that an easy mistake to make? You see what I did is I just transposed the last two numbers. Now, Kelsey, that's a mistake. But is that material enough to say we won't recognize the corporation? Don't think so.